Okay, Nick, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So our next presentation is Nicholas Martin, and he's doing Music's Power Over Depression.
Hi, everybody. So just to let you know something about myself, I'm Nick Martin, and I'm really passionate about music. I'm involved with the music program here at MCHS. I'm a trombone player. And so... All right, so my presentation is on how music can help treat depression. So about 300 million people have depression, which is 4.4% of the world population, and it contributes to suicide. And generally, females have a higher prevalency of depression. And if you look at the top graph, in the region of the Americas, North America and South America, we're above the world average for both female and male prevalency. So depression is obviously a huge issue, especially where we live. And so it's caused by an imbalance of neurotransmission, and that's how the body communicates with itself. And so it's specifically the neurotransmitters serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. Serotonin has to do with appetite and sleep. Norepinephrine has to do with stress, and dopamine is related to motivation and reward behavior. This imbalance is passed on genetically, but it can also be caused by stressful events like a divorce or the death of a loved one. And so it's treated by medication called antidepressants, which seek to increase neurotransmission. But there's more than one type of depression. In major depressive disorder, also called unipolar depression, the person will have periods of depressive states separated by periods of normalcy. And during those depressed states, they'll have a decrease of neurotransmission. And in manic depression, also called bipolar depression, the person will have periods of depressed states and periods of manic episodes or like highs, which are separated by periods of normalcy. And because during those manic episodes, the person has an increase of neurotransmission, the effectiveness of ADs on bipolar depression are disputed. And depression is also treated through psychotherapy, which is talk therapy. And treatment is more effective within a positive social environment and with physical activity. And so music has a lot of positive effects, one of which is that it offers a way of expression and communication of feelings and problems. And because of this, it has positive effects on social interactions. Children who have been musically trained tend to have increased communication, cooperation, and empathy in social interactions. And beyond that, music also modulates neurotransmission, and it's also often experienced within positive environments like a music ensemble such as band, orchestra, or choir. And so my thesis is that because of its modulation of neurotransmission and because of the positive environments that it's often experienced within, music helps treat depression. So when both listening to and performing music, there's proven increase of dopaminergic neurotransmission. And so, professional musicians, they had blood samples taken after a 2-hour concert and a 2-hour music-free control session. And there's an upregulation of genes which maintain dopamine homeostasis after the concert session. And so after enduring playing music, that increase of genes shows that uh, their bodies did better with maintaining healthy levels of dopamine, of neurotransmission. But serotonin and norepinephrine, on the other hand, aren't necessarily increased through listening to music. They can also be decreased. This is determined by subjective attitude towards a piece of music, and also by different musical characteristics such as tempo, sound, and tonality. So for example, if you're listening to fast-paced, screechy-sounding techno music, you're going to have increased of norepinephrine levels as opposed to a decrease when listening to relaxing classical music. And physical exercise also increases neurotransmission. And so while the decrease of serotonin and norepinephrine that's possible when listening to music, they're more likely to be increased while listening to music, and therefore increased while playing music, and therefore helping someone who has major depressive disorder. Because although sitting down and playing trumpet isn't the same as going on a run, still that physical stimulation should increase neurotransmission and therefore be beneficial to one's health. And so music therapy, which is pretty self-explanatory, it's music incorporated within therapy. Patients who received simply pharmacotherapy, which is medication, were compared against those who were administered both pharmacotherapy and music therapy for 2 months. And those who received music therapy made more improvement. And this is because of music's expressive quality. And so because of that, music is great for patients with low motivation and for patients who might have trouble with communication and expression of feelings and problems. And so there's different techniques used within music therapy, one of which is reproduction. Yes. And so reproduction techniques include like playing music that's already been written. And so with reproduction techniques, they were shown to especially improve interpersonal problems and increase social relationships, which will help people with depression. And environmental influences help determine treatment success. And so positive influences, positive social interaction, and violation of disorder-specific expectations. People with depression tend to expect negative consequences from their actions, negative feedback from others, and negative events in the future. And so within an ensemble, positive feedback from the conductor or whatever the leader may be, whatever environment. So positive feedback and positive rehearsal environments yield better results. So if the conductor wants to produce a great performance, then it'll be in their best interest to provide positive feedback to the performers and do their best to develop a positive environment. And so those increase positive social interactions and also violate depressive disorder specific expectations. And as far as physical activity, although it's really available to high school and college students, there are activities which incorporate physical activity within music performance, such as marching band, drum corps, winter guard, indoor drumline. And so that offers not only positive effects of music and a positive environment, but also physical activity. And for those that aren't still at the high school and college level, there are still plenty of options open to perform music. Like anybody can receive private lessons if they don't have the money to afford lessons. I know that a lot of people self-teach themselves to play guitars or piano or whatever instrument. And they also have everybody has opportunities if they're already performers to play within community bands, groups like the Southwest Civic Winds up in Durango. And so music performance increases the positive influences and helps people with depression, and can also help prevent depression because of those positive influences. But although engaging with music should be beneficial to one's health, professional musicians have all kinds of problems. 71% of them have had anxiety and panic attacks, 65% suffer from depression, and a little over half of them find it difficult to get help for those issues. And so this isn't really a problem with the music, but so much the problem with the music industry. And as you can see in the quotes, musicians don't really get a lot of support from others. They're less likely to, and they have a hard time making a living. They don't make a lot of money, and they tend to be perfectionists, so they give themselves negative feedback. And others might give them negative feedback because everybody has such high expectations of them. And so I think this problem could be solved from the beginning of music education. It should also, music educators' responsibility should also be to teach their students how to treat themselves well. Because as musicians get older, they might start isolating themselves from others. They'll spend time in the practice room, beat themselves up because they're perfectionists. And a lot of professional musicians are solo artists. They don't really perform with a lot of others. And so musicians should be encouraged to perform with others that respect them and give them positive feedback. But they should also be taught how to give themselves positive feedback and how to treat themselves fairly. Just to wrap things up, depression is treated through medication, which increases neurotransmission, and also through psychotherapy. Music has the same kind of effects because it modulates neurotransmission and because of the positive environment that it's experienced within, especially earlier on. And in a poor rural area like ours, especially like Montezuma County, music education is especially important because people might have a harder time accessing music therapy and even medication and psychotherapy. And so music education could act as a kind of self-treatment option because of the positive environment and because of the effects that music performance has on neurotransmission. And so people with depression should be recommended to try to engage with music, but more importantly, to engage with music with others. And so that's the issue with a lot of professional musicians. And I think all for music education to help even more with the treatment and prevention of depression, part of music education should be an emphasis on teaching people how to give themselves positive feedback. and how to treat themselves with a positive attitude. Here's my sources.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Let's go ahead and go to questions. We'll start with Ms. Weisenbaker. Let's see, I'm going to unmute you, Susan.
I just like to hear myself talk. So what I was saying is every year it seems like we have one of these type of talks at these honors diploma presentations, and I have no doubt that those of you involved in music and band are passionate about what you do. But did you look at it, these positive impacts of music education? Have you compared that to other similar type of activities that encourage family involvement, encourage communal involvement, such as sports or such as scouting? Did you compare the music results to those kind of things?
I haven't, but I thought about it a bit, and yeah, I would absolutely encourage anybody to participate within an activity in which they are in a positive environment and in which they can interact with others in a positive way. But something that music offers that the others don't is that the effect of music performance on the body.
Okay, and let's go on to Mr. Tracy.
Hi, Nick. I've got a question. Since you mentioned a lot of people's problems or issues stem from an imbalance with neurotransmitters, and music helps. Is it possible for there to become an imbalance with too much music? Can there be too much of a good thing?
I haven't thought about that, but and I guess that would kind of be similar to how antidepressants can have a negative effect on people with manic depression, and because of their already increased neurotransmission at times, and yeah, I suppose it could, yeah, that's possible, but at the same time, if you're interacting with it in the correct way, with it, like with others who provide you with positive social interactions, I think just having the experience of doing it, more so for the environment, positive social interactions, would be beneficial enough.
Okay, and as a quick follow-up, you also identified physical exercise and a few other activities like self-care as being very important. Where would you place music in the hierarchy of those few things that you listed in terms of like daily life activities?
Sorry, I don't completely understand what you're asking.
I guess in terms of importance of practice, should you get exercise every day? Is that more important, or should there be something musical every day, for example?
Okay. I think if you can engage within music in a physical way. I mean, this is, like I said before, it's more towards youth, like high school and college students. But if you can participate in an activity like marching band, which provides both music and physical activity, then that would be the best option. But if you can't, then I think be honest, I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Chandler.
Nick, so you talked about serotonin and norepinephrine and how they're different with different types of music. So what type of music do you recommend then for somebody with depression? Because you just said that all music could be used to help, with this, but are you suggesting somebody that's depressed listen to heavy metal music as opposed to classical, or is there any research about which type of music is better for this type of an approach?
So in the study that I found, norepinephrine was increased with music with a higher tempo and with more kind of strident, clustered sounds, but it was decreased with more relaxing, slow-paced music. And so I think if a depressed person has a norepinephrine deficiency, then they should try to listen to something that's more heavy metal, I guess. But as far as serotonin, it's increased with a positive subjective attitude and decreased with a negative. And so I think this had to, and so with the positive subjective attitude, that had to do more with a, maybe something with a major key, a little better sounding. And then it was decreased when it had to do with something in a minor key, more depressing. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. And we will have Miss Dimri Plu next. Okay.
Thank you.